Welcome, everyone, to Stepping Into Your Leadership. I'm your host, Christine Courtney. Our goal here is to give you some actionable takeaways that will help you lead your teams. Thanks for joining us on this leadership journey. Let's get started. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Stepping Into Your Leadership. We are here with our summer series, and our wonderful friends, Greg, Shamie, and Erika Petrelli are back in the studio today as we tackle some hard-hitting issues. And I'm calling this particular set of issues, in my own mind, the Gen Z version. These are some... Probably the most complaints that I get right now are about this new workforce coming in, which is Gen Z. And I understand it. And I also feel for them because those are my children's age. And God help the employers who have my kids as their employees. So I do want us to help figure out these issues, not only for the new employees that are starting, but also the bosses that are trying to figure it out. When people use the term millennial, which cracks me up for new employees, as if that's always a new employee is a millennial, and millennials are 40 people. So we have to stop blaming them. They're actually pretty good now. I now have the millennials complaining about the Gen Zers. So anyway, I'm giving us a couple of those situations today that are real situations that have happened that we've helped coach people through. So here we go. You guys don't know what these are though. So these are totally a surprise to my guests, which today is Greg and Erika. I'm going to give them a situation of an employee who we've had a little trouble with and how we can help coach them and make the employee better and also the organization better. And then we're going to do a lightning round to see how many leadership questions Greg and Erika can get through in 2 minutes. And so far, they've barely breached 2 questions. But they've done it very well. So, who knows? All right, here we go. You guys ready?
Ready.
All right, so I'm going to start this time with Greg. You're going to go first in your answer. I'm going to read the little scenario. Then, Greg, you're going to go first. And then Erika gets to either disagree with you, add on to what you have to say, whatever she thinks, okay? And then we'll go to our lightning round. All right, here it is. Jim. Jim is the employee. Now, I'm going to give you guys you are not Jim's direct boss. You are Jim's boss's boss, okay? In this scenario. You got this? So this is a little different. So Jim is new to the company. You just had your yearly company dinner where Jim's boss was being recognized and got an award. Jim did not show up. When you asked Jim about it, because you noticed that he was not there, Jim said, I hate to go to those things and have to schmooze. I feel so uncomfortable. And plus, I don't really drink. All right.
Okay.
How do you handle this?
This is an interesting situation for sure. I'm thinking of, I'm first of all, I'm happy that I have a relationship with Jim. If I'm Jim's boss's boss and I don't have a relationship with Jim, I've had clients who have been in that situation because they have so many projects going on and they just have their direct report who have their direct reports and don't really know their direct reports. And so I'm already happy that I know Jim. So hopefully I've established some kind of psychologically safe relationship with Jim to be able to have this kind of communication with and to actually just breach the topic and ask some questions. I'm going to lead with questions and really just be curious about what happened. Maybe there was something that came up that he wasn't able to be there. And when he tells me that he just didn't feel comfortable socially to be at these things and feels awkward socially and doesn't want to drink and so on, my response would be, direct, being that, I really think it would have been fantastic if you could have been there for him to receive the award. I think that would be, if we could play this again, that would be something I would encourage you to think about. And see how Jim responds to that. I would definitely go that route.
All right, Erika?
Okay, so first, let's find out or recount, how did we extend the invitation to Jim for this event? Was it clear that it was mandatory? Was it clear that Jim's boss was getting an award? How was the event advertised? Because I can understand, so as a young new staff member, he may have seen that as just a happy hour, like an optional social gathering. And if the social gathering, if the drinking, if the hanging out is not his vibe, he might have just assumed it was no big deal. Like if it's just a hangout where people are getting together for drinks and that's not my thing, why would I go? So let's go back and find out first, did we sort of incorrectly bill the event as an optional happy hour? If that's what we did, then it's on me, Jim's boss's boss, and as somebody who leads the organization, to reframe how we advertise the events and how we set expectations for who attends the events. Now, if it was clearly advertised that this was an awards dinner and it was advertised very clearly that Jim's boss was getting an award, then it's just an opportunity to say, look, this is the expectation in this company. It's really important that we're supportive of our peers, and especially in this case, your supervisor was getting an award. We do expect you to attend these events. You certainly wouldn't be the only one there that wasn't drinking. That's not the expectation. It's just about being together and honoring each other. So in either case, whether it was a fault on my end at the start or whether it was a misunderstanding or assumption on Jim's, one simple conversation about expectations for the future should do it. It shouldn't be a thing. Now, if future events, Jim continues to be a no-show, then that becomes a problem that has some kind of deeper rooted thing. But for this one, it sounds like just a misunderstanding that could be easily corrected with one conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. And I always wonder, like, how do you, and maybe Jim's boss's boss is the wrong person to do it, but how do you help an employee understand those cultural norms of like, this is actually good for your career. You should be going to this and this is opportunity to actually talk to people who are in positions throughout the company that you may need or need to know, or, because I think so many young people don't know these things right off the bat. They just think, oh, I don't need to go to a dinner. That's not managed. That's weird. I don't know these people. Yeah. I'm new. Maybe I'm a little bit shy and introverted. Why would dinner be part of my job? And I think, how do you get that part across? And I don't know who that is, but that to me is where I know I can imagine my kids when they're saying, why would that be a big deal if I miss that? That's not my job.
I have a thought on that, but I saw Tatiana pop in. Do you want to speak to that first and then I'll throw my thought in?
Yeah, no, I was just thinking about this expectation of teaching young people that these things are important. I think it's really on the older leadership to recognize that there's something that we need to change about those events so that they do feel welcoming. I think what we might be forgetting is that some of these kids don't know how to socialize. Like, could you imagine that some of them, like our producer missed his high school graduation, right? And so because of COVID. And so then to have this period of time in your schooling where your social aspect was just online. So in real life, some of that might just be missing. So I think the onus really is on the company to first, how do we make it very inclusive and make it feel like that it's going to be easy for you to network, right? Not that you have to sit there and come up with like, oh, I have to make sure I have questions for people, like the social anxiety part of it. And also maybe change the times that some of these things are happening, that maybe they happen during work time so that you're not asking people to come out of their personal time to come to something. So imagine that this is a new employee barely making it. Like, I hope that we run companies where people are making a livable wage, but now I'm asking you in your free time to come to something extra. And we recognize that your boss thinks that's important for you. Like, they would be happy to see you there, but also we need to change our expectations a little bit on what we are asking employees to do in their free time, but then also what are we doing to make it more inclusive and welcome?
So what I was going to say is a similar to that as a young person coming in, especially if it's an organization that has a large number of staffers that have been there for a long time, and you hear about an evening event like this, a dinner, and you in your mind might think, oh, this is sort of classic old boys, old girls club. Everyone's going to be just hanging out at the bar. They know each other. I don't even know how to get into that. And they wouldn't, like you said at the start, why would they even want me there? In this case, because Jim's boss is the one getting the award, I do think it is appropriate that Jim's boss's boss would be the one to have this conversation. But to emphasize what you both just said, to actually set the scene and the expectations for Jim, to say, I want this is your first company dinner, so I want to let you know what you can expect. Here's what happens. Here's the general flow of the evening. Here's the opportunities for you. And the most important part of that for me is to say to Jim, it would be so impactful for us to have you there. We would really appreciate your presence. I would love to have your ideas in the room. So to really say explicitly to Jim, your presence is actually really valuable to us. I really hope you can make it. Because otherwise, I totally understand why Jim would think that's not for me. And who cares? Nobody's going to care anyway.
Yeah.
So to actually explicitly say before an event like that, and in the future, it would probably be Jim's boss that says it. This is an event that's happening outside of work hours. I really want you there. And here's why, I think is a really important key part of this whole
Yeah,
thing.
because presumably I'm paying for a dinner, right? Outside somewhere, doing something nice for my employees. And once a year, this is a once a year thing,
Yeah.
right? It's not like you're required to do much more than this. And it just, I don't think people realize the other side of the coin. You know what I mean?
Well, you just said something. I think we make a lot of assumptions.
Mm-hmm.
We forget to fill in blanks that we don't think need to be filled in, that with a young person in particular, absolutely needs to be filled in. So the simple fact that the company is footing the bill might be enough to alleviate the concern, because a young employee might not have the spare income and not understand that the company is going to pay for
That's
it,
interesting.
and might see a fancy dinner and be like, I don't have the money for that, and I'm embarrassed that I don't, so I'm just not going to come. Whereas if they knew, this is free for you,
Mm-hmm.
and here's the value, could be actually all they need to hear.
Yeah,
to
it's definitely
understand, it's okay
much more communication is needed with the younger generations. I think we have to up our communication. We have to up our intentional connection to make sure that the messaging that Erika and Tatiana are talking about are super clear, and that they understand what's expected, and that they buy into it and feel excited and valued. Like Erika was saying, like, I need to help set them up for success because they're not going to do it the way I did it. I would go, right? No, of course. I'm like, this is an awesome opportunity. I'm going to meet people. I'm going to network. I'm going to expand my connections, and it could lead to a better job even. All these possibilities go through my head. That doesn't mean it goes through Gen Z's head, right? And so I need to really think about setting them up for success based on where they are at.
Yeah, I have the weirdest plug for us, right? Because I'm thinking about what Greg just said. No, because Greg's like, I would totally go. And I was just thinking, I was just like, I totally would not go, right? I would be the person that would not go. I would be like, my first company, I would be like, no, I'm thinking about our first year-end party, right? If I wasn't required to be there, I might not have gone. Right? If I didn't have you're doing this at the job, you're doing, you know what I mean? I wouldn't have come. But after going that first time, I totally would never have missed another one. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you better make it good, right?
Well, no, but meaning that the expectation was very clear to me that I had to be there. And then being there, I'm like, oh wow, this is so much fun. I'm going to come again. But what I actually was thinking about was Greg did something with a client, right? I think it was you and Megan, you guys went out, and it was the first time all their new hires, everyone that they had hired from COVID had got together, and they had hired you to do the event. Greg, do you remember this?
Yeah.
And the kids, and so it was all their new hires that they had hired remotely.
It was you and me, Greg.
Oh, it was you. Yeah. And I was going to call them kids, but they're new hires, right? And those people had worked there potentially for 2 years at that point and just had never met each other, walked away with friends. So they had hired you to create an experience.
And they were so happy.
And that's
they were so
always
happy
nice.
to be in person, live, connecting, and wanted more of it.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it. That's old people. We have friends. we have husbands and wives and spouses and romantic. They're looking. They need to date. They need to have friends. There's a lot of stuff that you got when you went into the workforce for the first time that they were getting none of at home in their parents' basements on their computers all day long. So.
And not for nothing, one thing that I am a huge fan of Gen Z, I feel like they're teaching us old fuddy-duddies a lot and making us change our old-fashioned ways. This idea of just do it because that's what's always been done. Do it for the sake of doing it, and work tells you have to do this thing. Gen Z is forcing us to really stop and ask ourselves why. Why is this the expectation? Why is this the function? Why is this the setup? Why is this the schedule? And if there's a great reason, then I'm all in. But help me understand the why, so that we don't just do things because we've always done them that way. So this is a very small example of a great way that Gen Z teaches us to be explicit and clear on the why. Why are we asking our staff to do this, to participate in this, to communicate in this way? It actually creates healthier, more vibrant, thriving workplace cultures. And I really do think Gen Z is helping us create that.
Yeah.
If you just take a moment to think about your events, I know that this is kind of the epitome of Gen Z is just like you said, Erika, making us rethink of everything just in this different way. But if you just rethink of your event, your dinner, right? This is your annual dinner. Is there a way that you can do it differently? Right? Because then it could be more inclusive. Because what if you have single parents that can't make it, or, anything, people that are taking care of their family members, people who have, like a meeting that they go to every day at that time. You know what I mean? Like there's so much that happens that if you could rethink of your event in a different way and be inclusive of people's different ideas on how to do this, like know what you want to accomplish in that dinner, like what was the point, what is the point, and then seeing what else could we be doing to accomplish this same thing in a different way.
Yeah, I think there's that where we have to do some introspection as a company. And I also think we have a responsibility to guide young people into this world, which mostly isn't going to change for them. And maybe the extroverted ones will figure it out, or certain people that do well in that environment, but there's some opportunity for those young people. And I think there's also a case for just that quote that I always like to say, let your fast horses run, that maybe you just let the other young people who did show up talk about how fun it was, or talk about what they did, and influence the others slowly so that, like you said, Tatiana, you wouldn't miss it then the second time. Anyway, so I think there's a lot of stuff to think about in this. This is certainly just one little situation with Jim, but there's so many that are related to this with Gen Z coming into the workforce that I hear little murmurs about already coming up, and funny to sometimes hear millennials who were, 10 years ago, the ones that everyone was complaining about are now the complainers, right? It's just constant, no matter what baby boomers were once complained about in the workforce. Gen Z, Gen X was, it's just everybody's going to have it. And it's just about everybody kind of learning new things, new ways to work together. So thank you guys for that. Now we're going to run to our lightning round. Erika's going to go first. We're going to see how many things we can get done in 2 minutes. And so Erika's going to go first, then Greg. Here you go. What book or podcast are you currently listening to?
Oh, that's so interesting. I don't have a podcast right now, but I'm reading a daily book. So it's not necessarily your hard-hitting leadership books, but I recommend it for everyone. I don't know, I always hold up the book on a podcast, but it's called The Pivot Year, and it's a daily reflection. So I recommend it for anyone working on a personal and professional growth journey.
Cool. Greg?
Oh, I've been looking back at this book, The Power of Your Past. It's a really cool coaching book. And it's all about looking at your past and recalling it, and then reclaiming it, and then recasting it forward into action. So it's a really interesting piece about really uplifting how important your past journey is.
In one word, what does leadership mean to you, Greg?
Agape.
Good answer.
Drop the mic.
Oh, man. Wow. Okay, then I'll just say connection.
Great. Who, Erika, is one of your favorite worst bosses to watch in movies or television?
That has to be Michael from The Office, of course, because he's so terrible that it's delightfully funny. Just to watch his inability to face a lot of typical daily leadership challenges.
Greg?
I don't know. I can't think of anything worse boss, but I'm thinking of that scene between the new kid who gets hired and he comes in with, what's his name? I can't remember the actor's name. I see him perfectly, but he basically tells him he's taking his job. I don't know.
What? Are you on a show?
No, it's
Where
a
are you in your
movie.
mind
It's a
right
movie.
now?
It's a
Oh, I
movie.
thought you were talking about Erika's The Office. You're not talking
No,
about
I'm not
that?
talking about The Office. I don't
you're
know.
talking about the movie with Dennis Quaid.
Dennis Quaid, yes, and he's got a base.
And-
How did you get
I
there? He's like, the scene with the new kid and the hire and the boss.
I work
and
with
you're
Greg
like,
so much.
The 1975 movie with Dennis Quaid.
Yes, Christine got it.
I forget who's the young guy in that. It's Dennis Quaid and
I can see the young
guy.
kid. He's
famous too.
Excellent in that scene. He makes Dennis feel like such a not good.
Is Dennis Quaid the new
No,
hire?
he's the older guy. And it's not Tobey Maguire, but it's somebody like that. It's somebody young and kind of, it's coming in, and the young guy has to tell him he took his job. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sure there's people out there that are screaming the name.
Yeah, screaming the name.
Yeah.
I know that movie.
I have no idea what you two are
Guys,
talking
you got through 3 questions. I'm very proud of you. Right. We didn't get to Greg's total answer in those 3 minutes, but we did get through 3 questions. So good job. I think it was the adding one word, and I love it. We're just going to end on the word agape. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Thanks, everybody, for listening. I'd like to give a special shout out to our podcast producer, Richard Francisco. Check out our notes for any details. And if you get anything out of this, please follow us. And if you enjoy it, please take a moment to rate us or write a comment. It will mean the world to us. We'd love to hear from you. And if you just can't get enough, follow me on TikTok and check out tlpnyc.com/podcast for more information.